rare bits of graffiti that's interesting that I've seen here in Palermo. Looks like one of those classic facades preserved. We enter into the Ballaro, B-A-L-L-A-R, Ballaro Market. So we'll explore this. Phase, which are usually a pretty good deal because the locals who work at the markets eat in here also. Something impressive ahead of us there. I have any idea what's zucchini. If you can't get it in these kind of markets, you don't need it. Little baby strawberries. Interesting. One of the characteristics Martino said of these markets is the loud yelling, very much like the Chinese in their supermarkets and their loudspeakers. Of wandering through markets. Some kind of avocado, no, I mean artichoke, I think. I don't know what they taste like. Seems to go off to the right and then down to the left, so we'll go to the left, which looks most populous. This is how you feed yourself for the next several days. Busy market. Remember, people know where they get the best deals for what they're looking for. Whether it's what looks like chaos here or a regular set of supermarkets in an American city. I haven't figured out how to get to this church. I've been trying to, so I'll keep trying, but we'll go up and take a look at that dome, since that's maybe the only look we get at it. Beautiful, isn't it? It appears that I passed right by it twice as I went down that direction, so we'll go again and see if I can get a closer look at the front. Here's the front of the church I walked by. This is as close as we're going to get to it. And I'm going to go up here to the left and walk down the street to another church I saw in the distance. Try to get up to where I'm going. There's still another church over there. About 2 major blocks away from that market we were just in is the flea market, if you will. However, you get the best deals, and the really best deal, of course, is here where everything's thrown that doesn't sell. Where all Donna stuff should be. Entire square we can walk around, which we will. Look at what's for sale. You call it a swap meet or a flea market. And it ranges about all around us. I mess around here for a while. That's where I'm trying to go to. The speed these people travel down through this traffic of people. Sometimes with even children. All the streets that can be set up, you set up in if you need to. Probably the first one here gets the first prime spots. You can see what we got, everything you could want. All the debris from society. This is where the first recycling stage. Whether it's a wall hanging or a rug, I bet you it has a world of critters in it. These are the people that got here first. Get your blanket out, get your territory. There's also a market, and this may not be it, where you go to buy the stuff that was stolen from you or someone else. You just keep roaming till you find what you need. It was probably simple from the get-go, and it's deteriorating but not gone yet. I turned 90 degrees from my intended direction of travel. Notice I didn't say route because I don't really have one. And then next to this building, which I saw as I got closer to the one I was looking at, I saw these lovely red cupolas up on top, and it reminds me of something I read, so we'll pursue this a little bit further. Hopes we can find something on my itinerary. That gives me a clue where I'm at. Those are the same little gewgaws that are up on top of the Roman or the Norman palace, I believe. So I think we're in St. John's of the Hermit or Hermits. Looking peaceful enough were it not for outside noise. Were these simply cisterns or what? There's no explanation given for this place, so we just wander around and guess at leisure. Interesting plants though, aren't they? Whether this is an original walkway or not, I don't know. But it is built on this little rock hummock, if you will. This is a very pretty cloister area with these lovely double columns. And perhaps an old well here. Imagine, as I always do when I'm in a cloister, people who lived here. Did they find beauty in this place, or was it just a sense of peace that maybe that beauty inherently gave to them? A little look down into the subterranean area. Perhaps they hollowed that out for a living space. This was probably their church or chapel. I think very Norman, without having my notes with me. I wonder what that was for. Some excavation. The grade of an earlier church on this site. Or a side chapel. Would this have all have been painted and covered with some kind of plaster? You would think so. Anyone who built that pretty cloister would certainly aggrandize their church. Guessing that this was, I think they called it the rectory. In other words, the dining room. Perhaps the grade was much lower than it is right now. And these might have been the ovens, I don't really know. Here are the last remnants of artwork, but notice that they have plastered over an earlier recessed area above that arch. So this would have been very beautifully painted. Interesting how these arched windows with the smaller, almost Archimedes firing slots indicate something protruding out for them. Maybe they were held on the wall, something rather substantial for timbers that size. Maybe those are modern bars designed to hold the building together, and in the old days there were beams there. Remember, I'm taller than probably the average person was, so they still would have been well underneath those beams. Also, if this grade were lower than it is now, but this looks original, whatever that means. Apparently, out here somewhere was formerly a cemetery. It's a relatively small complex. You wonder if in its day they had acreage outside here for growing crops so they could be self-sustaining. You wonder at the hours spent here by the people who lived here, contemplating their God, I suppose. Wonder what indentations like that are for. That looks like it's a runoff pipe. That, or it looks like the kind of aqueduct system we saw in Greece, but it may well just be the top of a wall. And don't those look like firing ports? And look at there, the remnant of an archway, an arch there, although rather rough looking. Interesting tree. Notice here that there's that same drainage device, and my guess is that that might be a drainage device where the wall tied into a ceiling or a roof for where we're standing now, or the space between us. This is interesting. I'm guessing too modern with those pipes to have been old. Maybe those are cement, but maybe they were some kind of baths. Sometime before this street went in, there may have been a wall, I'm guessing there was, that surrounded all of this area to give it tranquility. You guessed that a lot of modifications have been made. Look at that set of stairways there. Certainly a wall built after that to create that platform up above. I think the area inside this fencing is a Roman ruin, and I think inside this building it was initially designed to protect these mosaics. So I'll get in close so we can see what they are. I'm not sure there's much left of these even in this building. So this appears to be a border, like the border at the corner of a carpet. This looks like combat between a bull or a pig-like bull and something else, which seems to be holding a sword. And there, maybe a clown or a jester. Now this is all that's left, so maybe there was enough for architects and archaeologists to be able to recreate that. There may be that. You can see it is just like an area carpet. What the room might have been, I don't know. As you can see more of the ruins. It might have been a residence, who knows? There's some interesting old wagons. Sound of Johnny Cash playing in the background. That restaurant. Probably from some parade in the past. Be a carnival setup. You know, throw balls at statues on that table. These are the little taxi type things that run about. Although, not sure if these are work wagons. Also cute, aren't they? They'd be neat in Jackson, I think. I think this is all part of the motif of the restaurant behind me. But still, might have been wagons used in the day. A little square, some distance away from the Palermo Cathedral. As you look about, you see remnants of the past. And here, probably a local neighborhood pizzeria. Just left the pizzas right behind me to the right, saw this building, and then this walkway through here, or archway, which looks like it had a day. Notice the timbers providing living and working space above it. So what would have been inside of here? I don't know. But all that remains now are ramshackled little buildings there, look more like garages. But it's a little community. The sign over there, probably walked right by it yesterday. The huge doors that used to be there are gone. So we'll focus down on the main part, which is this entry. It might have been pretty in its day, not much to it now. Not much at all, actually. Notice that white marble they used for the spokes of that rose window. We'll see if we can go inside. Maybe that side room that we often see in monasteries. But this one is more of a chapel, rather significant one, in size at least. It's a large and pretty cloister garden, although the upstairs is a working area, in other words, residences, that sort of thing. If I had heard music like this when I went to church, I might have been inspired. I stopped in to buy this ice cream cone before I go to the Teatro Massimo, and I was sitting in here and noticed that it looked like this woman right here was the woman who served me, but and so I asked her, and she came over and she said, "No, that's my sister, and that's her grandfather, the one that looks like Al Capone." And in the day, I might not have been too far off, with all due respect. Someone's artistic rendition of Teatro Massimo, and the last scene of Godfather 3 shot in there, and I think on the front steps also. Almost in the shadow of Teatro Massimo, I eat my ice cream. They don't allow video, they do allow cameras. So for the time being, I will skip the Teatro Massimo until I've checked out what YouTube has to offer. I don't know what this building is yet. Church is next to, I guess, what's called the Archaeological Museum that I went in. Not much of a museum, not much in it, most of it closed, none of it in English. So in a city that would cater, you would think, to tourists, what's the point? This church I looked at the very first morning I was here, looks like it's closed. It's San Domenico Square. It's interesting with the statue, and there are a couple of turtles. Those are painted turtles, I think. A typical kind of a stone pebble piazza surface, if you will, with some pretty designs. Little English here, but obviously these are fish hooks, brass, I believe. Where they were found, what the relevance is to Palermo, I don't know. Picks and axes. Interesting old camera. Almost a complete absence of English, so nothing much to see, but no, I have no idea what these are for. Yes, would be anchors, but more likely I'm thinking they're devices for holding buildings together. Santa Maria Nova, La Nova, as you can see from the sign. And it might have been a pretty square at one time when that place was new and vibrant, as was this, before this square had to be turned into a parking lot. Everything is gone that once embellished this building. Here's still another church as I go in search of Palermo Market. This looks all but abandoned. Down at the marina, at least one of them. Not too far from my hostel. Interesting, this narrow building looks like it might have been something, maybe even a church with that belfry up on top, or that cupola up on top. I imagine these boats, both large and small ones, go out maybe every morning to get the catch that you see in the markets. Catamaran, big one. That looks like part of the commercial works, of course. Down there they bring in cruise ships. I haven't seen evidence of cruise ships. Big stiletto yacht. Walk over and see what that building is. Maybe an original breakwater wall or wharf. Out of time, there were impressive buildings here. All the stories she could tell when that prow used to plow the waters. Imagine when it was freshly painted. Just plopped into the water and ready to go. Fishing boat? Probably. Here, a curious piece of park art. One of those runabout little trucks with debris, all with a cargo, all of painted white on the quay here, called the White Ape Car. Theoretically a visible symbol representing the town. This is interesting because that wall continues down here. This looks like it would have been a bay for boats. How big it was and what connection it had to that building or those buildings there, I don't know, but they may have been custom houses. This is called Castle by the Sea, pretty much on the waterfront. Not quite sure what it is, and I'm not sure what this had to do with it, but we'll climb up those stairs and see what's to be seen. The building looks like a relatively new construct, whether it was administrative or hotel or whether it really is old, I don't know. With no visible attempt to make their waterfront beautiful or appealing or dramatic or alluring to either tourist or local. Having said what I just said about not improving the waterfront, there appears to be a vast and long park ranging down there, and this building, don't know what its lineage is, but these could be nice places to live. Thank God there's a church nearby. We'll go take a look at it. This is an interesting church, although it looks like it's closed, maybe not even used anymore. But in the day, it's like an interesting chunk of old residential. And here's still another church. Looks like it's used. Those doors are painted or new. This wall looks fortress-like, and that concept seems supported by, first of all, this is a medieval-looking building, but also those walls up on top look like they're fortress in nature. Notice here how what looks like a stone is actually composed of a set of bricks that are then stuccoed with design. So this is Porta de Greci. The archway pretty much stripped down if it ever had anything on it before of interest. But I think this is probably one of the old gates. Notice the similarity with that sawtooth edge around this exterior arch. Now if those slots go up high enough to raise a door into, I'm thinking they probably do. So it looks like this whole building was the entrance. This was like a fortified building for this portal. So I couldn't pass up the allure of this area just to see what it involved and what it contains for the people of Palermo. Cute little barricades. So this is nice, a strand, if you will, with cement chairs colorfully painted to make it fun for kids and others. In those bushes is the Porta de Greci, and the church we looked at last, and the church we looked at before. And there's the long building we walked in front of, and there is the end of that long building where we started. It was intended to be used to make these huge stones for this purpose, or did they just knock down a beautiful building? I don't think so. I wonder, look at the traces of paint. Oh, that's probably graffiti. Nice to have a bike path here. And the potential of a park, which they hopefully could embellish sometime when they get some money. It looks like industry trumped citizens once again. So I don't really know if that's Castle of the Sea or whether it was the entrance to the Castle of the Sea, and that's the Castle of the Sea. Don't really know. I made the mistake of looking at a sign that said Piazza Mira this way, and I think we may be here. Look at this coat of arms for this fenced off area, which may well have been owned by some wealthy person like the guy that owned that place. It's a pretty place, and I must be able to get access, so we'll keep walking around the perimeter until we find it. Certainly looks medieval in design. Let's find out what it is. Important entryway, maybe built after all these other buildings into that area back in there. Plaza Marina. What a great example of one of those trees that we had looked at earlier that has the multiple trunks on it, and looks like vines crawling up it, but they don't seem to be killing it, so it must be symbiotic. Chiaramonte or Steri. Just looks like an old area looking down that street. Probably a large house of the super wealthy in its day. That was the entrance, one would think, for the carriages out. And further down, that house, probably, the white one, probably redone on the outside. Another church. Massive gates. I think we'll find out this was an important family. Well, now we are entering this park now, and it's a very pretty, welcoming, beautiful, big shading trees. Wonderful refuge for the people who live about here. Particularly old people like me. Imagine if you had to live here for some reason. Living up there, coming over here. Imagine up there if you have a view of the ocean. That could all be worth it. Big, huge, long, snake-like roots that support this incredible tree structure. Look at how this one tree comes down as though it were man-made as a support for that other huge trunk. And that's what the function of those are. You see the same thing happening right there. The base of this first one, you can see how there have been shoots on the bottom. So this thing inherently, look at that right there, this tree inherently knows when and starts shooting down, supporting tree trunks